Thanks for joining me for some quick tips on refreshing your resume. Today's job market is particularly competitive, so it's more important than ever to have an up-to-date resume to increase your chances of getting a job interview. A great way to begin your job search is to give your resume a quick makeover, especially if you haven't updated it in a while. My name is Catherine Oldham and I'm the Manager of Skills and Job Centres based at Victoria University Polytechnic. Skills and Job Centres are a free service operating at all TAFEs across Victoria, and we aim to help everyone in the community to be job ready. Our career advisors help people to explore their career options. This can mean looking at the training or study requirements of jobs you may be interested in, and also working one-on-one to search and apply for jobs. Part of that process involves us providing advice about developing an effective resume, and this is what I'll be talking to you about today. Our experience at the Skills and Jobs Centre tells us that when it comes to your resume, content is key. So I'll be talking about what you should include in your resume. But too often we've seen that a poor layout has resulted in a trip to the reject pile, so I'll also be talking about how to style your resume for success. The first point I want to make is that you need to tailor your resume. Do you have a particular job in mind? Think about the specific requirements of that ideal job. What skills, experience, and qualifications do you need? And do you know all the different job titles that apply to this role? If you're not sure, have a look online at job ads or speak to people who work in your chosen industry. Based on this information, you can then tailor your resume to include the same keywords that reference the job requirements and decide how you'll describe your own skills, qualifications, and previous employment experiences. These days, many companies use recruiting management software to screen candidates for job openings, so including keywords is a great way to help you make it through the first round. The next point to note is that the design and layout of your resume is super important. It's really tempting to dress up your resume with fancy fonts and graphics, but it's much more compelling to have a clean and simple design and layout. At the Skills and Job Centre, we see that resumes with complex templates, graphics, and too many columns often don't get through applicant tracking systems. So a poorly designed resume might not ever be seen by potential recruiters. If your fancy resume did manage to get through the first automated stage, your hard-to-read fonts would be distracting, and busy recruiters and employers don't view them favourably. A simple, aesthetically pleasing yet functional resume is a reflection of who you are as a potential employee. It demonstrates your professionalism. That doesn't mean you're expected to come up with an impressive resume design yourself though. Choosing a simple resume template and making it your own is the best way to go. There's many available online. I like the ones on Seek at the moment, for example, or you can choose from a range of simple templates when you open a new document in Microsoft Word or Google Docs. Many people ask us, what is the ideal length for a resume? Of course, this depends on your relevant experience, but regardless, you should still try to limit your resume to 2 pages, with a focus on quality, not quantity, by keeping your word count tight. And less is more when it comes to providing context for the roles you're listing. Describing what you've achieved in your career in as few words as possible will make your resume stand out. The first page of your resume is crucial as it sets the scene of who you're representing yourself to be. But however you lay it out, there's still 5 key things you should include on page 1. First, your name and contact details. This should be at the very top, in the header. Use a larger font for your name, and then include a personal phone number and email address. And include location information so your resume is searchable for potential employers, but keep it pretty general, for example, Footscray, Melbourne, Victoria. Second, your career objective or personal profile. This should be only a few sentences and should paint a picture of who you are, what you do, why you're ideal for the role you're applying for, and what your career aspirations are. It's best to tailor your summary to the prospective role you're going for, and it's a great way to show an employer what you can do for them, rather than just what you want. Third, your key skills. Listing these is a must so that potential employers can quickly see your capabilities. Think about not only your technical job-specific skills, but also your transferable skills, meaning those that would be useful in any role. For example, communication, teamwork, problem solving, organisation, attention to detail, or willingness to learn. All good. Number 4, your professional experience. This is the section most people are aware needs to be included in a resume, but it's also the section where we at the Skills and Jobs Centre constantly see the most need for improvement. You need to list your most recent role first and try to make it appear on page 1 if possible. The rest of your professional experience can then be listed on the remaining page of your resume. Typically, you don't need to include more than your last 10 to 15 years of work experience on your resume, so go through and remove any information that's more than a decade or so old. The professional experience section is a really important part of your resume, so it's critical to get the formatting right. Highlight your position title at the beginning, followed by the name of the organisation you worked for and the dates you worked there, including the month and year. For example, January 2017 to September 2019. Then, write a brief summary of what your position involved, with a focus on the tasks you performed and any significant achievements. This could be a short bulleted list for each job you've had. If you haven't updated your resume in a while, make sure you add any new information, like a new job, new educational information, or new skills. If you're new to the workforce or returning to work after an absence and your resume is a bit light on, then think outside the box. Have you performed any volunteer work recently that relates to your job? Or maybe you received a promotion or were given new responsibilities. You can also add professional activities in this section, such as conferences or workplace certificate programs. And 5, your education and training. Still on page 1, this should be brief and straightforward. In bold, list your most recent qualification first and state the title of the qualification, the year you completed your training, and the name of the institution. So what goes on the second page then? Obviously, you'll list your remaining professional experience on this page, and you can include 2 other sections. It's optional to include your hobbies and interests. This isn't generally required in a professional resume, unless you think your personal interests are somehow relevant to the job you're going for. But if you're pretty new to the workforce, it can be a good idea to include something about your life outside work, so that you can differentiate yourself and make yourself memorable. Depending on the job you're going for, it can also be an opportunity to build rapport with your interviewer, especially if you share common interests. And references. When going for a job, you need to find up to 3 referees who can speak to your abilities as a worker. Who you ask to be a referee depends on how long and varied your career has been, so think carefully about who you'll ask and get their permission to pass on their details, which you can do once you're asked by an employer. But in your written resume, you need to just include a note at the end to say that references are available on request. Now, I want to note a couple of things that you do not need to include. Photos. It's not about how you look, it's about your relevant experience and skills. Personal details, such as your marital status and date of birth, again, irrelevant. Any jobs you undertook more than 15 to 20 years ago, it's just not current enough to be included. And also note that the words curriculum vitae are not usually applicable. Resume is more acceptable for most jobs. And finally, but importantly, remember to update your resume regularly. Anyone who's created a resume for the first time knows how long it can take to get it right. So it's worth spending the time to update your resume regularly. Whenever you get a new job, achieve something at work, complete some training or begin a course, make sure you add it to your resume. It's much easier to continually update your resume than to start from scratch every few years. So, in summary, if you want your resume to stand out, include the 5 key sections on page 1 to set the scene and focus on getting the content right rather than dressing it up with fancy fonts or graphics. A clean, functional and up-to-date resume will be a much better way to get noticed by potential employers. If you get stuck with your resume development, or you need some help deciding on the right study or employment pathway for you, please feel free to contact us at the Skills and Jobs Centre for further advice. And good luck!